And finally, number 9, the ending. You know what I said earlier about the ending? This film tries to recreate the most tragic moment in Spider Man history after the death of Uncle Ben, which I remind you is still unresolved. And it doesn't take. After beating Electro, Harry in the Proto Goblin outfit attacks Peter, having surmised he was Spider Man, as well as abducting Gwen. And in the battle, Gwen ends up falling down a clock tower, and Peter's attempts to catch her end up killing her because of the whiplash. In the comics, Gwen's death was a shocker because nobody saw it coming. Well, except those who read the cover, as that was put on the cover by comic authorities at the time. But here, since that event happened, almost everyone saw that coming. And not only that, there's no investment into her death. How could one of the main character's deaths not be poignant? Well, for one, it's glossed over in a montage that takes place over the course of several months. And after seeing Gwen's graduation speech, which Peter couldn't have taped because he was busy with the Rhino, he decides to return as Spider-Man to battle Rhino. And also having been inspired by some little kid dressed up as Spider-Man staring him down. You couldn't have made a worse ending if you tried. And there was a film that ended with a link to a website. A website link. A better way to handle this would be to have Gwen's death at the start of a third film, and have it affect Peter by making him embrace his darker side, and it could have also opened the door to Spider-Gwen. That was The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which is, in my opinion, one of the worst superhero movies ever made. The film has both too much and too little, with the whole thing being a cynical, manufactured attempt to make a cinematic universe, focusing more on the villains instead of the hero, and even then the villains are poorly developed. Sony banked too much on the brand name instead of trying to make a film of legitimate quality, and simply repeated the same mistakes that nearly cost them the brand in the first place. I mean, the filmmaking is decent for a mega blockbuster, and the two leads have solid chemistry, but the writing is a disaster with surprisingly unintelligent decisions made by the characters and a hole-filled plot. Stay far away from the cinematic garbage at all costs. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 merited mixed reviews from critics and was the worst reviewed Spider-Man movie thus far, even worse than Spider-Man 3. So this film already had an uphill battle. When the film hit America, it opened on the first weekend of May, that date being May 2nd, which also happened to be the same weekend the first and third Spider-Man films opened too, whereas Spider-Man 2 and The Amazing Spider-Man each opened over the 4th of July weekend. It debuted in first place with 91.61 million, which was considerably lower than the other May opening Spider-Man films. And compared to its predecessor, it's an apples to oranges comparison, as that film debuted on a Tuesday, rendering comparisons next to impossible. However, it was safe to say that this wasn't an impressive debut, and garnering a B+ cinema score from audiences, it didn't have a whole lot more it could do. In its second weekend, it fell 61% to 35.5 million against Neighbors, and the following weekend, The Roar of Godzilla sent it down another 53%. The film would eventually squeak by the 200 million mark domestically, but it petered out at 202.85 million, closing after 108 days in theaters. Overseas, it fared better, as expected for a Marvel film in this day of age, with 506.1 mil, doing a bit better than The Amazing Spider-Man, but less business than Spider-Man 3, which remains the franchise high overseas. It had the best foreign results in China, followed by the UK, South Korea, Japan, Mexico, Brazil, France, Russia, Germany, Australia, India, Italy, and the Philippines. Sony's second entry in their rebooted Spider-Man franchise made 708.98 million worldwide, which at the moment is the highest grossing flop I have found. After theaters take their cut of the gross, Sony would see back 276.49 million, which easily covers the expensive $200 million marketing push, but most of their budget would remain as red ink in the theatrical run. Remember how earlier in the video I said Disney got the merchandising rights? That proved to be an exceptional strategy, as since the film disappointed, Sony didn't have the merchandising revenue to bounce back, and Disney was now in prime position to renegotiate the rights. Kevin Feige, one of Marvel's heads, would go to then Sony head Amy Pascal and worked out a deal to benefit both companies. Marvel would gain creative control over all Spider-Man films, and therefore allow him to enter the Marvel Cinematic Universe, while Sony would finance and distribute, giving them the much needed revenues and getting an iconic character back to his home. A deal we're all better off for. The estimated theatrical loss on this film is $183.5 million. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe, press the like button, and follow me on Twitter at Tyler the Analyst.
You meant you said no.